All right, guys. I don't even know. Would this count as a political topic? I don't know. I mean, this is more of a personal topic for me, being that I am one of the thousands, if not millions, of individuals across the country riddled with student loan debt. And this is one of those videos where if you want to dislike it, I honestly do not care. But subscribe anyway, because trust and believe, I have an entire playlist. I think I call it like popular news or something like that. It has over 200 videos. Sometimes I'll dip my toe in the arena of like hot news topics, music, celebrity scandals or something, if it's worth talk. Basically, if I feel like I have something to contribute to the conversation, or if I actually feel like I want to say something on it, I will. Sorry, it's early in the morning. People are just, blazing through the parking lot. Seems like it's going to be a nice day, kind of chilly. Now, I remember about several days ago, it was trending for a couple of days now about student loan debt. Now, look, please do not attack me in the comments, but I know that some people were saying over the weekend, because some of the podcasts I listened to, they were saying that it was saying that, Joe Biden is now the official president-elect. Guys, if I'm wrong, please don't come at me. I gave up following the race for a while. Like I said in that live stream the other night, the last live stream I did, once I cast my vote, I was pretty much done. I mailed it off. And the election night, I remember staying up and I'm like, oh, okay, Biden's in the lead, but more states are red. So I'm pretty much just going to go to sleep and probably wake up in another Trump, country, if you will, for another 4 years. And then I woke up and I'm like, hold up. And then the race just got dragged on so long. I just stopped caring. I'm like, meh, whatever. So I don't know if the official call's been made. I don't know if votes are still being counted. I don't know if lawsuits. I don't know. All I know is a bunch of people and articles and stuff have said president-elect. So there we go. Plus, happy birthday, Mr. President-elect, because I believe he turned 78 today. Now, it was trending about student loan forgiveness, and I was like, wow, I've heard this song being sung before. So, I didn't even click on it, but I want to say 2 days later, it was still trending, cancel student debt. So I decided to read through some of the tweets, and, I saw what I always saw. People who wanted to have the debt canceled for, having debt canceled. Then other people was like, I worked hard to pay mine off. Sorry, phone. It's like people like, I work hard to pay mine off and all. And then other people like, well, canceling loans wouldn't benefit the economy and this and that and blah, blah, blah. I mean, again, I'm used to hearing the same thing from people. All I know for me personally, I would love it. I mean, 2020 has been bad, but at the very least they did freeze or default loans, whatever the proper term is, where payments don't have to be made given the state of, unemployment and whatnot in the country. But it's been interesting because of the fact that I'm only speaking for me. Just know this now. So if you disagree, that's fine. And I'm not trying to sound ignorant either, because, my perspective could easily be debunked by one comment. It was like, well, Jeremy, if you look at the economy closer or this or that, and you'd realize that by doing so, this is going to negatively impact. That's fine. But just know I'm only going to speak from my 2 cents in my opinion. So student loans suck. So, I mean, if you're watching this, I'm aware that I have a younger audience, those who are like in high school and whatnot. So, college is something that is in your grasp if you want it. Just know that it sucks sometimes if you aren't properly prepared. So I'll talk a little bit about my story, and I've shared this before. Hell, I have an entire playlist about my time as a Liberty University student / employee. You can find it on the channel now. There is a playlist for it. But I would just say, I was talking with some friends of mine. You have some people who want it, some people who don't, some people who have paid it off, but not everybody has it the same. At the very core, the conversation I was having, one of my buddies, he was like, because I invited him he actually started his own YouTube channel recently. I'm like, hey man, one of these days, if you want to do a Zoom or something where we're just chatting it up, because we used to work together at the call center, let me know, because we both have experiences working at a school. He actually is working on another degree at another university now, because he finished up a bachelor's somewhere else that wasn't just Liberty. And we have experience as both students, alumni, but also employees of a higher educational institution while working behind the scenes. Because I think I said it before that within my first week of training for that job, I learned far more about the ins and outs of college financial aid and strategy, that if I knew that stuff before I even became a student, I would have saved myself probably $50,000 plus of debt, because nobody ever sat there. And now I understand more about it, because I remember one time when I was in high school, when I was about to graduate, I remember my parents took me, I think it was like in Danville or something. I know it wasn't in South Boston. It was out of town, and there was some sort of meeting going on, because I got a letter in the mail. Hey, you're about to go to college. Come to this meeting to see. It has something to do with financial aid, because at the time, FAFSA, I don't even think I'm pronouncing it correct. I know in training, like I had to like go through a 30-minute exercise because I could not say it. FAFSA or FAFSA. I don't know. I don't give a crap, because I don't fill them out now, and I don't even have to say the word. So I know it's FAFSA. That's all I know. We had no idea what it was. Like, we thought it was some official. I mean, obviously it is an official document. They were like, we got an official document, and like we thought it was like a freaking lawyer procedure. Like we had somebody to actually look over it ourselves. I mean, look over it for us. But at the core, that entire seminar we went to felt like an Amway scam. Basically, it was like, hey, you can pay us to fill out your FAFSA for you. And we got up and left. We were like, this is some bullshit. So we went home. And I remember the first time filling it out, my mom and I, it was such a process. Like we were just, it took us like 5 minutes to answer like one, like fill out one, because we wanted to make sure we had it right. And I remember after that, thankfully, you know, kind of like doing taxes on TurboTax or online, your information is already saved. So after that first time of doing it, I could just do it myself. Like I would probably just have to change a couple of sections, but then I would be good to go. But it was like, you know, quite an ordeal. And I remember in college throughout my semesters, you know, I pretty much made it a point to check with student accounts. So I was always aware of how much debt I was accumulating, because I always checked in on it. And like, you know, the people in the office like, yo, we know you stay on top of things. You always come in here, because I just did not want to be one of those students who graduated and then got that letter in the mail and just be shocked at the number. So it was a pretty, you know, I was on top of things, but looking back, there were some things I wish I was informed of. And my story consists of hundreds of failed scholarship attempts, because to put it in perspective, I grew up in a mobile home. Parents still live in one. We lived in the backwoods. Dial up. Never knew what high-speed internet was until I got to Liberty. And when I say high speed, I mean like not the kind of, you know, high school library computers where, you know, they would have so many things blocked and whatnot, so you couldn't even really look at anything entertaining. You just had to look at, you know, for scholar, you know, well, excuse me, student sites, if you will, Google and whatnot. So my first semester of college online, you probably went, well, Jeremy, online? Yes, because the financial aid department at Liberty, and trust and believe, I've had many negative encounters with the financial aid department, were not able to process my documents in time. Every semester outside of grad school, so basically in all my undergraduate semesters every year, I was always randomly selected for financial aid verification, meaning that I would have to turn in dozens of documents, and it would take days upon days for each document to be reviewed. So there was never a time outside of grad school where I wouldn't have to pay the $125 financial aid late fee, because they would always take forever to get through the paperwork. And I was never confident that I would be able to go back to school the next year because of financial aid department. Like I would always be delayed, and it's like, well, dang, I don't even know if I could pick the classes I want, because, you know, I picked the classes, I try to do check-in, they tell me I got verification, then I get dropped from the classes. It was stressful every year. So keep that in mind. Like the amount of money wasn't really the burden. It was getting in. I feel like I experienced more hell trying to get from semester to semester than it was trying to get to, you know, get the finance. Well, yeah, than actually dealing with the financial aid. Because when it came to me being grown up on dial-up, you know, when it came to like that final year of high school, you know, the guidance counselor and whatnot, they would give us like, you know, websites and everything. Hey, check out scholarships here and apply. I didn't have that luxury because the internet was so trash at home that it wouldn't. I never watched my first YouTube video until college. Like when I went to college for a weekend. No, actually, no, I didn't even have a laptop until I graduated high school. So I never had that kind of stuff. And I'm not trying to sit up here and try to get your pity, but I just want to explain my story and how student loan forgiveness would affect me. So if you don't want to hear that, you can click off the video. It's all good. But yeah, I didn't even get my first laptop until I graduated high school and was confirmed to be going to college. That was the first laptop I ever had. We had a desktop computer back in the day. And, you know, I remember trying to play like Pokemon videos and whatnot on YouTube. It would take like, and y'all who grew up with dial-up, y'all know I'm not exaggerating. It would take like 30 minutes to, you know, get the video for a 30 sec. Yeah, it took about 30 minutes for a 30-second video to play. That's how long it took. Not to mention going on websites and waiting for pictures to pull up. Like it was hell. It was hell. So looking back, I have no earthly idea how I was able to do that first semester of Liberty with dial-up. Like, remember, this was dial-up. When somebody's on the phone, I had to get off the internet. That's how bad it was. So when I got my first student refund, and trust and believe, I'll get to that later. When I got my first financial aid refund from college, because spring 2010 was the first time, what was it called? The Higher One card. I don't know. They probably changed the name, but it was like a student debit card. It was like a Visa card or MasterCard for students. And I was like, okay, this is interesting. Well, I wonder what this does. So when I remember that first financial aid refund was like probably like $5 or $6 grand. I was like, whoa. I remember like calling people like, hey, I just want to make sure like what's going on with this money? What's happening here? Because the reason I didn't get it my first semester online was because apparently I didn't check it off. I think what I did was, I think I said hold my credit instead of release it. So basically the refund money from my first semester online was rolled over to the spring semester to pay for a lot of the charges. So when I got that like $6,000 back, that was pretty much the money right there. Because I think things probably would have been different for me if, let's say, I had gotten that first refund while I was still at home. But at that time, like during 2009, 2010, Liberty did not have a lot of online options in regards to degrees. Like, remember, 2009, I got in the mail I still have these DVDs to this day, a stack of DVDs that were basically my online courses. Like, I would stick in a DVD and like Dr. Elmer Towns would be on the screen. Like, I remember before that, you know, Liberty was doing like VHS and whatnot. I think they were like one of the first colleges to do the distant learning program. You know, of course it was appropriate for their time, VHS and DVD, to where we are now, but you know, it was pretty revolutionary for what it was. And you know, in order to get a degree in a certain, you know, major, I had to go to campus. So you know, if things were different, yeah, I would have saved a crap ton of money, you know, by just either staying at home or whatnot versus going to campus. So back to the scholarship hunt. When I first came to Liberty, I remember going to like the student advocate office every week. I would sit down and look through these huge binders of scholarships and, you know, apply for them. Like during the summer, I remember a couple of summers, I wasn't even working a job. My job was applying for scholarships and I never won. And I have an Excel sheet to prove that I applied for like over 200 scholarships. I never won anything. Never. And they would always have these scholarship hunt things on campus where like, oh, students come out for this seminar to get tips and hints on how to do scholarship hunts and everything like that. I went to every single one of them because I wanted to learn more, but also the fact that they gave away one scholarship per event. Like, you know, there would be a random drawing. Like, you know, you would get a ticket when you walked in and then they would have a random drawing. And I never won. And it got to the point like the people knew me so well and they knew where I was sitting. So after I didn't win, they would kind of look at me and I'm like, it's all good. Now I walk out. I remember I actually got to speak at a couple of those too, because they knew me, because I would come in there every year looking for not a hookup, but a hookup, like try to figure out what I could do to win money. And it was disheartening. I'll tell you that. That's probably why I got to the point, like, when I eventually quit Liberty to do YouTube full time, I got sick of being rejected, whether it be girls, whether it be employers when I applied for a job somewhere else, or, in college, applying for scholarships. I would never win anything. So it got to the point where I remember I finished undergrad and I went to grad school. Looking back, I say this with confidence. I knew what the fuck I was doing. I knew what I was doing by going to grad school, but I also knew that I didn't know what I wanted to do with my life. I felt like grad school was an escape to avoid the inevitability of adulthood. I wanted to go to grad school, though, mainly because of the fact that I had finished my bachelor's in only a couple of years, not 4. And also the fact that the divinity program, religion, was super affordable. Like Liberty had, I think it was like a seminary cap where it was like only $2,200 or something like that per semester if you took full-time credit. So I was taking between like 12 to 15 credit hours. And I got like 2 masters and 5 graduate certificates. I basically swept shop when it came to the divinity program. Like, I know, of course, things have changed now where they have a crap ton more degrees, but I got all 5 graduate certificates and a master's within like 3 semesters. And then my first master's, I got that before I even went to work at Liberty. So that, I kept track of all the debt. I knew what I owed and all that stuff. But then we moved to post-college life and I was working at Liberty. So pretty much working at a private university gave some benefits when it came to, student loan payments and things like that. And I got scammed twice by 2 different companies. Basically, these companies that would call you about student loan forgiveness. Hey, if you pay us X amount of dollars per month, we'll give you the lowest rate possible. And if you pay us for like 15, 20 years, we'll make all your debt go away. I got scammed twice. And that went on for like a couple of years. So while I'm making these payments each month to these companies, I think Equitable was the first one or the second one. I know they got sued by the federal government, though. I actually got the money back. So I got the money back. But the thing is, by the time I had realized what was going on, I saw my student loans and they blew up with interest, because here I was telling my parents, like, hey, no, don't worry. Hey, I'm paying my payments each month, and this is the contract, and this is the, like, I actually recorded a video right before this one about the whole Taylor Swift and her masters and her battle for those. And I talked about the importance of, reading a contract and everything and understanding what you do before you do it. Yeah. Pot calling kettle black. So, I mean, yeah, I'm in 6-figure debt. It sucks, but I will say this, the past few months on YouTube have been amazing. And if they continue to do well and can just get bigger and bigger, then I hope it gets to the point where I can make like 5-figure payments at one time and be done within a couple of years. But it really does suck. I did tell Navi and everything I'm in a deferment plan because, technically I'm unemployed because I'm a YouTuber and everything. But it really sucks to be screwed over like that. And, thankfully 2020, I've been able to erase all my other debt, like car payments, all that stuff is done. All that stuff is done. Student loans are the only debt I actually have. If not for student loans, I would just be reduced to what I'm doing now, which is rent. Me and my roommate split rent. He takes care of the electric bill. I take care of the Wi-Fi. I got my phone bill. And then, of course, like food, things like that. And, streaming, like, cell phone bill, Disney Plus, Netflix, all that stuff. So I'd say this. For me personally, student debt would be a blessing to just be erased. Just to give everybody like a fresh start. Because for the economy, from my understanding, I think it would benefit a lot of people. Now, I get it. Like, I get it. Like, people who feel like they will be negatively impacted for having to pay the sins of those who weren't able to pay their debts off. And remember, I worked for 3 years in this call center. I could tell students who were actually getting financial aid in order to get a degree and make it in the real world versus those who were clearly cheating the system to get 5-figure refunds each semester. Like there would be students who, what were the rules? Like you had to have at least 6 credit hours during like, okay, you had the different terms, A, B, C, D terms. So for example, let me just stick with B and D terms because it's simplistic. You needed like at least 6 credit hours to get financial aid. So basically a class in B term and D term, 3 credits each, will be 6 credit hours. So that's part-time and you will be eligible to get financial aid and a refund. However, the 6 credits would have to take place during the same 8-week period. So if you had 2 B term classes, you would get your refund after the first 21 days of class. But if you took a B and a D term class, you would not get your refund until the D term was a month into it. So basically, I would have students sign up for courses and 2 in the B term, 2 in the D term. They would get full-time status because they're 12 credit hours. They would get their refunds during the B term because remember, they would have 6 credits during the first half of the semester. They would take those 2 classes, get like a $5,000 or $7,000 refund, call back in and drop the D term classes at a certain point after the first couple of weeks, so they wouldn't be penalized for it, and then go from there. So there were students who would obviously get these huge payouts, accumulate tens of thousands of dollars of debt, and go about their business. Like there was something called the aggregate loan limit, which was pretty much the limit on how much a student can utilize for financial aid. Like I know there were different caps for undergrad, different caps for graduate students. So there would be students who would take maybe 1 or 2 to 3 classes a semester, get these huge, and I mean disgustingly huge refunds each semester. And then when I would tell them, hey, I spoke with financial aid, you reach your aggregate limit, so that means you have to pay out of pocket. Wait, what? But I'm not even done with my degree. There would be students who would reach their aggregate limit of like $70,000 plus, but they haven't even finished half of their degree. That's because they would just take these classes, retake the same class just to get the money. So yeah, it sucks for people like that to have debt wiped away because they beat the system. But I think it also hurts for people who are legitimately trying to get a degree to get a good job and then erase the debt themselves, but it didn't work out. Because the part I want to talk about now is the fact that the expectations of the American dream and what college used to stand for versus what it does now. Because number one, college is far more expensive now than it was when our parents, grandparents, and so on were in school. And as Will Smith, Fresh Prince, said, parents just don't understand. Like I had to deal with hell because parents just don't understand the pressures that we have to deal with. And I'm not trying to undermine their struggles, but I think more parents need to be more understanding of how the kids today have to deal with struggles that they necessarily didn't have to deal with when they were growing up, or understand that struggles that we have to deal with are even worse than they did. Because I remember as a kid, my parents or family members or friends of them or whatnot, they could quit a job one day and then have a next job by the end of the week. Say, okay, I quit my job Wednesday. I had an interview at this factory or whatever. I want to start next Monday. We don't really have it like that nowadays. We don't really, and I'm talking pre-pandemic too. It's the fact that it wasn't really an expectation to go to college back in those days. I mean, getting a high school diploma was meh. My dad quit school in like 11th grade. My mom, she graduated high school. It's just one of those things where times were different and people need to recognize that. So a lot of times people my age, we were like the first ones to go to college or one of the first. And pretty much, it was like, okay, you do good in school, you go to college, you get a degree. Then with that degree, you can get a good job. You can pay off those loans and start a family. But the thing about it is, I feel like, again, I can only talk from my personal experience. I really feel that during my generation of the boomers from the 90s, while we were in college, things took a shift where getting that degree wasn't really enough. I feel like more often than not, experience trumped your education. Let me say it again. Experience trumped education. So it didn't matter if you had a master's, a bachelor's, or what have you. If you didn't have like 3 to 5 years of experience in a certain field, you weren't applicable for a job, let alone an internship. And it's like, well, sir, the internship I needed in order to get experience. And then most internships aren't even paid. So when you're out of college and you have a letter saying, hey, you owe $80,000, an internship ain't going to cut it, because at that point you're going to need to make it on your own and pay bills. Because I know for me, I have some resentment. I'm going to be honest here. I feel like at some point I might have to talk to my parents about this, especially with me being somewhat successful now. I just don't think they understood the fact that I feel like I was being kicked out of the house. Like, I remember that's probably another reason why I decided to go to grad school, because I really didn't know what to do after that bachelor's, because it felt like as soon as I officially finished school, I was getting the boot. And don't get me wrong, I understand things happen for a reason. And to be honest, like, if things didn't happen the way they did, it's debatable if I'd be able to do what I'm doing now, just to put that in perspective. But it's like after graduate, I'll never forget, like, when I got my first master's, basically before I started working at Liberty and whatnot. Graduated. I don't believe I crossed the stage because it was a terrible storm during commencement day. So my ceremony got pushed back until like 7 that night. I'm like, guys, I already crossed the stage once for my bachelor's. I'm okay. I'll get the master's in the mail. It's all good. I remember going home. We packed up my dorm room, went home, and I remember being sad because at that point I truly understood, oh shit, this is really over. This was May of 2014. Like, I was 22 at the time. My birthday's August 29th, so I was 22 at the time. I had my master's, a bachelor's, an associate's, and a minor. 22. 4 years of college, 22. And at that point, it was the job hunt. And again, parents, I know they mean well, but they just did not understand how vexing, how stressful it was. Every day I'm waiting for a job interview or something, or somebody respond to a resume. They get home from work. You hear anything back? I'm like, no. It's like I wasn't working, obviously. My days were spent looking for a job like they were looking for scholarships. And my mom was like, well, go over to the job office and everything. It's like, it doesn't, and not to sound elitist or whatnot, but what was the point of me working my ass off for 4 years to get those degrees if I was just going to apply for a regular job that I could have gotten right out of high school? Parents don't understand that. They just want to see results right then and there, because to be honest, you know, I feel like, especially for families that don't have a lot of money and have to depend on financial aid or scrape pennies to get by, if they send you to college, that's an investment. And if you aren't making good on their investment, then you're probably going to get the boot. So for me, I remember my mom, she was like, well, they got a call center. Ironically enough, there was a call center in my hometown that I could have ended up working at instead of Liberty. Yes. Honestly, my mom was trying to get me in the call center, which, to be completely honest, considering that she forced me to sign up for the call center at Liberty, it would have made more sense. But like I said, they were just giving me the boot. And I was like, again, 22. I remember applying for the job. On my application, I said, I do not like to talk on the phone. I was completely honest. They brought me in for an interview. I did some mock calls. I apparently killed it, and they wanted me for the job. And I was like, what the fuck? I didn't even have an apartment. So every day for work, well, the 3 weeks of training I had, I had to wake up before Jesus and the Roosters, get on the road, and drive to Lynchburg, an hour drive, go to training, and then as soon as the day was over, jump in my car, go back home, rinse and repeat for 3 weeks. Didn't find an apartment until right before training ended. So the thing that sucked about that was, as soon as I got that job or my first paycheck, my mom was like, oh, geez, this is great. And I'm thinking to myself, the thing about it was, if you failed the training exam, then you didn't get the job. So I had an apartment. I signed a lease. And I'm like, if I bomb this exam, what the hell am I going to do? So I remember going to the exam. And I ain't going to lie, I'm pretty sure I bombed it, because I know it was the entire day. You can use it to take the exam. It was like 3 different parts. And I remember they're like, hey, if you need to take a break, stretch out, do lunch, you know, you could take a break and come back. I was the only, there were only like maybe 6 people in my training class. I was the only one who blitzed through the exam. I didn't like just bomb it on purpose or anything. I basically went through and become like, you know what? I studied my ass off. There's no way I'm going to just take a break, because if I do, it's going to stress me out. So I'm just going to go through this exam, and whatever happens, happens. So I was the first one to finish the exam because, like I said, I went through the entire thing at once. And I remember after I had finished, they took me out to the floor. They had a cubicle set. They had my name tag. I'm like, no, y'all not really doing this to me, right? They're like, what? I'm like, because I didn't want them to bring me out there, put me on the floor, do this and do that. And then it turns out the test results come. I bombed the exam, and then I get let go. It's like, don't set me up for this. But the thing about it was, I think a couple weeks later, I want to be completely honest here. I know I was reluctant to look at the scores. I did not want to look. I remember when the scores came back and they were like, yo, look at them, because everybody in my class had looked at them. I just remember saying that I don't want to know. And I think at some point, because my first couple of months on the floor, on the call center, I had broken 3 records. I had broken 3, like the most financial check-ins and, this amount of time, or most registered. I remember killing it during my first, basically by Thanksgiving, I had already broken a couple records, and they took me out of the nesting call center part of the floor and put me on a main team. And I remember my coach at the time, our AD or whatever, she was like, yeah, you didn't do so hot on the test, but the fact that you were so engaged and you did so well during the class itself, we wanted to give you a shot on the phones, because I was like, yeah, I was always trying to prove myself, because it felt like I made it by a handicap, but I pretty much killed it. And they're like, yeah, our senses were right. We could tell you would be amazing, and you are. So it was pretty much my first sense of self-resilience, because I feel like at the core, parents feel more comfortable with being able to brag that, oh yeah, my child did this, they went to school and whatnot. But when it comes down to the aftermath of the student loans and everything in life after that degree, they kind of just want to see results. So I always felt like I was kind of, just ousted. And my sister gets to coast by she living at home. She has a kid and everything and whatnot. And I'm just like, how come but yeah, looking back, yeah, if I would have stayed home, yeah, I probably would have stunted my growth. I mean, the job wasn't perfect, but I had some good times to still talk with people from the job and everything. And I know this story feels a bit all over the place, but like I said, this is just me explaining my life during college, after college, and how student debt played out. Because I know a lot of people my age, I think around the time that Toys R Us was about to go bankrupt, and I think like K Jewelers and all these other jewelry. So like, yeah, this generation, they aren't spending money. A lot of kids in this generation aren't having kids of their own to buy toys from Toys R Us, or a lot of young people who are, post-college age aren't getting married. Who the hell can afford an engagement ring when you have to buy an expensive pass to park on campus? Do you know how much textbooks cost? Like, nobody has the money. I know people who have, prolonged getting married, starting a family, getting a house, because they cannot afford it due to student loan debt. And it really, I know for a lot of people, like, they don't even have their damn degree. And I'm like, you know what? You might as well finish it. I mean, because if you finish it or not, you're going to have that debt. Like, I mean, most people, like, they stick in there because it's worth the degree to at least have it, because what's the point of having like $30,000 in debt, but you don't even have an associate's to show for it? Like, I know for me, I love that aspect of at least convincing people like, hey, if you don't want to do the 4-year degree, let's look at different plans of action to take the credits you do have. What was it called? The interdisciplinary studies degree. I always joked on the phones, like, I call it like the Build-A-Bear workshop, where you can pretty much take the credits you have. We can try to map it out and see, what was it, the registrar's office? They could construct a degree program for you. To be completely honest, the interdisciplinary study degree was pretty much just like toilet paper that said you graduated from a college. But at the end of the day, it was something. So I know that student loans can definitely be a burden, because to me, more often, and I remember seeing this post somewhere, it's like, at the age of 17, 18, the government won't give you like a $30,000 loan to start a business, but they'll allow you to sign up for student loans, which could put you in like $200. Yeah, it's like they won't give you $30,000 for a business, but they'll allow you to sign paperwork for $200,000 worth of student loans. Like, there was no lawyer by my side. Like, I didn't know what the hell I was doing. My parents didn't know either. It literally felt like New Edition when they signed their first deal with Maurice Starr. It's like, hey, if you sign this document, we'll pay for your college so you can get that degree. And yeah, that looks all well and good, but the long-term ramifications of it sucks. Just like I said before, expectation was sign up for the loans now, go to college, get an internship, get a right connection, get a job, then be able to pay the debt back. It did not play out that way. Like, Liberty was the first and only job to say yes. And then it got to the point where I'm like, I'm making this school a crap ton of money by putting all these other students in debt, and I'm being paid in peanuts. So I'd rather branch out on my own and struggle. And thankfully now I'm making more doing what I do versus working at that call center. But at the end of the day, student debt still looms. So I just know for me, student loans would be great because, like I said before, that's my only form of debt right now. So to get rid of that would be life changing. And I know I was talking with some people who are more inclined to know about like the politics and the economics of it all. And like with Liberty being a private school, there's no guarantee that we would get any relief at all, which is understandable. But if 2020 didn't teach us anything, it's resilience and the fact that you can dream. Now, every day might seem like a nightmare, but you can dream. Like I joked around, like if Will Smith and Janet Hubert could squash their nearly 30-year beef, then I feel like student loan debt could be relieved, especially when the pandemic started and we saw these bailouts for hotels and, you know, airplane companies and shit like, or airport companies and shit like that. I feel like student loans would be good for the little man because, you know, off the rip, allowing that debt to be relieved would mean more houses to be bought by students or former students or cars. I mean, that money would go right back into the economy. Not to mention on top of that, you know, it would help people's credit. It would help the opportunity to buy more stuff. It's like, it reminds me of that sketch from Dave Chappelle where it's like black people getting reparations. It's like the cost of a bucket of chicken is now $500 and stuff like that. And it's like Sprint stock has skyrocketed since 500,000 delinquent phone bills have been paid off. That kind of stuff. It's just amazing because the little man would benefit greatly from that. Like I said, I know that money would just be a blessing. And like I said at the beginning of the video, I'm well aware of my part, my fault, and why I have the debt I do now. But it's just something that I really feel could help because, yeah, it would suck, you know, for people who paid. But guess what? I pay my taxes, but I'm not on food stamps and whatnot. So the money I pay in taxes, it goes to things that honestly don't personally affect me or I benefit from. So the people who have EBT and stuff like that, you know, they use part of the money I contribute to buy their food and everything. And it's like, well, how come I got to pay for somebody else's food? I'm not benefiting from it. The same thing applies to student loans. It sucks to be you. I get, hey, it is what it is. Life is unfair. It is. I just know that I'm supposed to pay taxes. I pay them. And what happens with the taxes after I pay them, let it be. As long as I don't get locked up or anything, I'm good to go. So I just think that student loan debt forgiveness should be done. But if nothing else, I just hope that it's a cautionary tale for upcoming students who are thinking about college and whatnot. I feel like the mistakes of my generation can definitely impact those who come after us. Like if I ever have kids and my nephew's 10, I mean, the day will come where maybe he thinks about college. But kids today just, I mean, not just kids, but everybody has different opportunities. Like back in 2008 or whatever, when I was in high school, I never thought about YouTube, doing it for a living. I never knew, like I said, dial up. I knew of YouTube. I didn't know what it was in the sense of, you know, oh, wow, I can watch videos on this thing. No, I ain't know about it. And another thing is, you know, not to put parents at fault completely, but I just wish I had more knowledge in regards to, you know, what debt was. I mean, the sad part about me in regards to my story is like, and I feel like a lot of you can relate to, it's like, I wish that I knew more about debt. No, I wish I didn't have to get into debt to learn more about debt. Basically meaning that I wish that it didn't take me being in the debt that I'm in now to learn and realize more about what debt is and interest and things like that. Because I remember at the bank at like Wells Fargo, not Wells Fargo, what was it? No, Wachovia. Well, Wachovia, then Wells Fargo. We were at Wachovia, then I went to BB&T because Wachovia was like going to start charging if you had like or was it Wells Fargo? It's like, yeah, if you don't have X amount of dollars in your bank account, then we'll charge you, or some nonsense like that. I remember overdrafts. I remember learning about overdrafts as a kid. I remember like they gave you like one freebie, and like looking back, it's like, man, I wish I would have blown it on like a huge thing, so that could have been waived, but nah. So I just know student loan debt forgiveness would be life changing. Yeah, I know it could affect taxes and everything, but because like a instant fix, so to speak, could have long-term ramifications, but I do think it would actually do more benefit than harm. But like I said before, there's probably someone more economic or financially or politically savvy than me who can really break things down. But only speaking from the perspective of a little guy who's dealing with a big debt, that's really what it is for me. I know for me, like, I don't want to get married or anything with this debt, even though it's not uncommon. I just feel like I want to go into, I'm not saying that, oh, if this debt's forgiven and I don't have any other debt and I'm making good money on YouTube and whatnot, I want to get married. I'm not saying that, but I just know for me, I'd rather be in a position where I wasn't in crippling financial aid debt before I get down on one knee and say I do. Because me personally, but being the introvert I am, I'm not really thinking about finding anyone anytime soon. I'd rather have that taken care of, because I feel like if I ever met someone and wanted to get married, I wanted to be in a position where I wouldn't be bringing down the relationship because of my financial aid debt. You know, I'd rather be in a position where I had something to bring to the table. But, you know, it will be interesting. I know that the articles like, you know, the pressure's on, like his first day in the White House erased the debt. I don't know what Joe Biden's policies are regarding financial aid debt and things like that. I just know that it will be a benefit for a lot of people like myself. So let me know your story in the comment section below. Do you have a similar tale to mine where you swindled out of money with promises of financial aid forgiveness? You know, what was your college story? Did you go to college because you wanted to, or did your family push you? Were you kind of like pushed out of the house when you graduated to get a job and you pretty much went from there? Let's talk about it in the comment section below. And please keep it respectful. If you don't want student loan debt to be forgiven, that's all well and good. You are entitled to your opinion, but we don't need to go at it in the comments. Let's have some civil conversations. And, you know, based on how this video does, maybe I'll do more conversations like this in the near future. So we'll see what happens in 2021. And with that being said, I'll talk to you soon.